Hello and welcome to the new Mindscape. In the previous video, I talked about death as a rite of passage. And in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how this applies to understandings of death in traditional Chinese culture. In traditional Chinese culture, the dead move on in one sense, but in another sense, they don't move on and they stay with us. We give them a certain role among the living, for example, as ancestors. And some of you may have shrines to your ancestors in your home, or you visit the tombs of the ancestor on grave sweeping day. In Chinese culture, we have the cosmology of yin and yang, which are correlated with heaven and earth. Yang is correlated with heaven, and earth is correlated with yin. And there are two different kinds of souls. There's the hun and the po. So you have the yang souls that rise up toward heaven, and you have the yin souls that go down towards earth. And in some Chinese sayings, there's the idea that we have 3 hun and 7 po. The hun is yang and goes up towards heaven, and the po is yin and goes down towards the earth. The hun is associated with spirits, and the po will become ghosts, according to this conception. In traditional Chinese culture, the dead always stay with us, and they remain literally at the center of the house. If you go into a traditional Chinese home in the countryside, you'll often find the altar for the ancestors in the very central room of the house. And as most of you know, the ancestors are represented by portraits and tablets. The tablets, in some sense, are considered to be alive and have some kind of spiritual energy linked to the spirits of the ancestors. Daily offerings, food, and incense are given to the ancestors. Now, why are these daily offerings given to the ancestors? Maybe you hope that the ancestors can live better in the afterlife. Or you might think that they didn't enjoy life enough when they were alive. Or there's also the idea of burning money for them, to bribe the officials of the underworld, to ensure their safe passage to heaven, or for a better reincarnation. The ghosts will go through the tribunal, a kind of court where they have to undergo the tortures for all the sins that they've committed. They need to bribe the officials of hell so as to pass on to heaven. So there are different offerings for ancestors. And this implies that the dead have never really left us. We feed them as if we feed our family members. We include them. Especially in Chinese culture, if you don't eat with somebody, this means that that person is not really your friend or your family member. The sense of belonging is demonstrated through the sharing of food and drinks. You offer food and drinks to the ancestors, so you feed them, and in a sense they continue to be a part of the family. The family includes not only the living, but also the dead. That's why, in the traditional Chinese culture, the tablets of the dead are placed right in the middle of the house. According to the Chinese traditional worldview, what would happen if we don't give offerings to the ancestors? What would happen if you ignore them? You might dream of them asking you for something. They might come to you and ask for more. This may also mean that you don't have filial piety, 孝顺, so they won't be happy about that. It's just like grandma and grandpa won't be happy if you ignore them here in this world. Now, here we don't have time to go into the stages of the funeral ritual, but we have to know an important point about funeral rites. In any culture and religion, a funeral is the rite of passage which changes the status of the people who have died. In the Chinese context, the funeral is the ritual separation of the hun and po. The hun will become the ancestor and the po will go into the tomb. This is the ritual transformation of a person from life to death. In other cultures, for example in Christianity, there's a separation between the soul and the body. The soul will go on to heaven and the body will be buried. There are different notions of the souls, of the body, and of so on in different cultures and religions. But in funerals, the idea is always that the different parts will be assigned to a new fixed home, in heaven, in the tomb, or in the shrine, and they won't wander around lost between the world of the living and the world of the dead.